Good evening and welcome to episode 37. As always, we will start with our gratitude attitude. So please gently close your eyes, take a deep breath. As you exhale, relax your body. Take another deep breath. As you exhale, relax all your muscles. Take one more deep breath. This time, completely let yourself go. Now, think of one thing that you are thankful for that happened in your life in the past 1 week. Once you have identified that, think about why you are thankful. And now, let's set it free. If you are by yourself, say it out loud what you are thankful for and why. If you are with someone, tell it to each other. Okay, so we're going to continue with our discussions on emptiness. In the last two sessions, we looked at the emptiness of phenomena as well as emptiness of body. Let's look at an example that may explain emptiness a little better. Growing up, I used to watch these magician shows few times a year. There were these magicians who were also hypnotists. They would come to town and perform magic shows. When you go to these shows, almost always they would have at least one hypnotist spell during the show. They'll have these unique names, if you will. One comes to mind is Jadugar Zingara, meaning magician Zingara. That was his name. I guess that was his stage name. They would put the whole audience into their spell. And then all of a sudden you would think that a piece of wood is a cow or a horse or something, right? Emptiness is just like that. We are like the people in the audience. For us, that cow or the horse is as real as it comes once the magician spells on. It exists, and there's no doubt about it. Now, if you are the magician, you can see that the cow, you can see the cow, but you know it doesn't exist at all, right? Because you created that. So that's the next level of understanding we need to cultivate. From understanding that this cow exists for sure inherently, from magician point of view that yeah it's there but really it doesn't exist. No inherent existence, right? Just an imputed existence. Now if you walked into the hall, let's say half an hour after he put his spell on the audience, you were late, You would only see that piece of wood, right? You won't see that cow at all because you are not under that spell. Now, that is true wisdom. We all eventually want to strive for that. Hope all of this makes sense and explains the emptiness just a little bit better. Today, we're going to focus on emptiness of mind. And as always, when we did the emptiness of body, we look for our body in our limbs and our uh, skin and all that good stuff, right? So before we look for something, we have to know what it is that we are looking for, right? If someone says, "Go get me a key for my car," and there are 10 car keys sitting around, you won't know which one to bring unless you know what it is that you're looking for. So let's look at what our mind is if we're going to look for it. We have discussed in the past there are three types of mind: gross mind, the waking mind, right? That sees everything that we see in this world. Our subtle mind, the mind which is active in our dream state only. And our very subtle mind, our peaceful mind that travels from one life to the next. One way to look at this is that our mind is like a river. It is a consciousness that is flowing from lifetime to lifetime. Have you ever been to a river to just hang out? If you notice, there are some water bubbles near a rock or something, right? A life is just like that water bubble. When the water bubble bursts, what happens to the water? Just becomes part of that river. That's it. Goes and creates another bubble somewhere else. So that's like our mind, the consciousness, which flows continuously. Yet another way to look at this is like soap bubbles we used to blow when we were young. Let's say you blew a big soap bubble, and I also blew a bubble. Now we both talk about our own bubbles, right? This is my bubble, that is your bubble. And all of a sudden, let's say the bubble bursts. Where did the bubble go? Can we call the air inside that bubble my air and your air? Of course not. Our very subtle mind is just like their bubbles. It's part of a consciousness that is going on from the beginningless time, life after life, without stopping. So, does the mind exist inherently? Let's go find this inherently existing mind. We know that the mind is a continuum. We talked about that, right? In a river example. When we are happy or unhappy, we look at that mind as inherently existing. Have you ever felt that you're not in a good mood? Everything's wrong, and you think the whole world's coming to crash, right? At that time, nothing positive comes in your head. Or vice versa. You are so thrilled, everything's going your way, you think nothing can ever go wrong, right? But we know that our mind changes from moment to moment. If it was inherently existing, it would be solid as a rock, right? It won't change at all. If it's happy state, it's happy state all the time. But that's not the case. You are happy today, unhappy next day. So the mind changes every moment, and we cannot find this unhappy mind or happy mind because it constantly changes, right? If you go look for this in your continuum of your mind, think back, let's say 24 hours or 48 hours, and see the moment where it was happy, where it was unhappy. You won't find the mind in the same state throughout that 48 hours, right? If something were to inherently exist, it has to be same all the time, right? The exact same logic applies when we look at our feelings. Our feelings are as fleeting as the wind blowing on a stormy day. They keep changing from moment to moment. And we cannot find a mind that contains that feeling when we go look for it. So, of all the emptiness teachings, I find that the emptiness of mind is probably the most difficult to grasp. So, don't be discouraged if you're struggling with the concept. In time, with enough contemplation and examples, you'll begin to understand the concept. It just takes time, it just takes repetition. So, in today's meditation, as always, we'll start first by settling in our hearts. Once we settle down, we'll begin to contemplate the inherent existence of our mind. And we'll do this by looking for our mind as we just talked about. Where is that mind which is happy all the time or unhappy all the time, as opposed to the continuum? Once we realize there is no inherently existing mind, we'll meditate on that point single pointedly. So that's the plan. If you are ready, let's begin. So please get into a meditation posture in a cross-legged sitting position if you can. If you are on a chair, make sure your legs are straight. Keep your back upright. That's the most important part. Gently close your eyes. Keep your mouth just a little bit open. That way, any tension you may be carrying in your jaws disappears. Put your palms in your lap, right over left. Have your thumbs gently touching each other. Now, take a deep breath. As you exhale, relax yourself. Take another deep breath. This time, completely relax all your muscles. Now, bring your attention to the sensation of your breath. Feel the cool air as you breathe in. Feel slightly warmer air as you breathe out. Keep your focus on your breath for about a minute or so on your own. Now bring your attention at your heart. Imagine everything that happened before this moment melts into light and disappears. Things that have yet to occur are not real anyway. So just stay in this moment. Enjoy the peace this moment brings. Now, let's look for the inherent existent mind. We know our brain and our mind are two separate things. Our mind is this continuum of consciousness which moves from lifetime to lifetime. Think about past 24 hours. How many different emotions did you go through? Were you happy all the time? Were you happy some of the time? Think about the moment when you were happy, truly happy. How did it feel? Do you recall what state of mind you were in at the time? If our mind was inherently existent, we should be in that same state of mind all the time. How many moments can you find yourself in that state? Now, think about a moment you were not so happy during the last 24 hours. Maybe the worst moment in last 24 hours. What brought that moment? What were you feeling at the time? How many times or how many moments did you feel like that during the last 24 hours? If your mind were to inherently exist, you would feel like that during the entire 24-hour period. So, an inherently existing mind would be happy all the time or unhappy all the time. Instead, it's swinging like a pendulum, going from one end to the other. But randomly. Pendulum has a rhythm. Our mind has no rhythm. So, as you can see, we cannot find an inherently existing mind. With that in mind, let's concentrate single pointedly at our heart. I am not my mind. When you're ready, gently open your eyes. Okay. Any questions? Go ahead, Suman.
So I didn't quite follow when you were giving that example of a magician slash hypnotizer,
Yeah.
and when you arrive late, I mean, everyone else is still under the spell. They are looking at the animal versus you're looking at the. And how is that connection with the
Very good
mind?
question. Very good question. So, when we talked about emptiness, we said the car. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, we had this nice discussion about the car, and hey, the car's running at me. Um, is it real, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
it is just like that, right? That when you are under that spell, you are seeing whatever the magician is showing you as absolutely real, and you are grasping it. If for magician himself, he knows what's going on, right? So he knows that, hey, yeah, there is a car, but it's not inherently existent, right? Because he created that by telling you there is a car, correct?
yeah,
Someone who came late, which essentially we're calling it a wise person, meaning if someone has reached enlightenment, then they can see through all of that from the beginning without, they know that there is no such thing. There is no inherent existence, if you will, right? So when people say they reach enlightenment, then they are able to distinguish that fact between inherent existence and imputed or dependent existence just by looking at it without uh, thinking about it. See, my understanding right now is purely theoretical, right? I see you as I see you, just like you see me, right? So my understanding about emptiness is purely theoretical because it's not in my experience yet, right?
yeah,
Uh, so I'm going towards being a magician from being the audience. But for someone, let's say Sadhguru or Dalai Lama, or there are lots of people who are enlightened people, right? Sankaracharya,
mhm,
who you want to take one, right?
mhm.
For them, they can see the reality as is. So they can see that all of this is just hallucination, if you will, just, imputed or dependent existence. So those guys are what you call just like the people who came late before the spell was there, because they can see as is, right? If you
Yeah,
came late, you will just see that piece of wood. You won't see a cow or a horse or whatever, right? You will just see piece of wood because that's what it is. So for people who are enlightened, they are just like the members of the audience who came late before the spell was put in. So they can see things as is without even thinking about it because it's
got it.
in their experience. Got it?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.